And yeah, you guys can go. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, tonight we're going to be talking about storytelling, you guys, because I'm reading Stories That Stick. And it is so amazing, and there's so many takeaways from this book that apply to what we do as coaches. So don't forget that you can do the chat if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, and I can address those at the end. But basically, in any kind of business, like no matter what it is, right? Like obviously we're in a business of helping people live healthy, fulfilling lifestyles. But there's a lot of businesses out there, and the point is always to get from a point A to a point B. You're always trying to get, someone to come alongside of you and either purchase something or, try a product or something like that. And there's always, like in our case, obviously, we want people to, we want them to buy into the healthy lifestyle, right? Like we want them to be able to eat healthy, yummy foods, work out, feel better about themselves. Like that is our job as coaches. And obviously, like there's obstacles along the way, right? Like it's hard to get people to just automatically, um, you know, get on board and right away, like all your invites are like, yes, 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 like it takes work. And there's obstacles along the way. And really, it's more like in the book, they talk about how it's more like gaps, and our job is to bridge that gap. So some of the obstacles that we have are money, right? Those are the objections we get. It costs too much money. I don't know if I'm going to have time to invest in that. A lot of times I feel like people just aren't confident. They've tried so many diets out there. They've tried all the quick fixes. None of it works. And they just don't want to spend more time and energy and effort in something that they don't think they can do. I mean, I have so many people I talk to that are just like, I can't do this. So when we think about bridging those gaps between where people are and our viewers and our followers and where we want them to be, like we have to think about all of those objections and how we are going to create our story, because that's what this whole bridging the gap thing is all about, right? Like we have so much power in our story. And especially as influencers, because that's what we are. We're not here to sell. We are here to influence others, and we're here to, share who we are so that hopefully it can inspire them to do the same thing. And so, more than any other business in the world, I think storytelling is like our number one thing. Like it should be at the forefront of what we are doing in creating our posts, our content, and all of that. Okay. So my question for you guys tonight is, what are you using to bridge that gap between, the people that you see, the excuses that you're getting, all of the objections, and your content and telling your story? Okay. Um, it costs nothing to tell our story, you guys. But how hard is it to tell our story? It can be so difficult, right? Because it takes bravery. It takes being vulnerable. It takes like digging deep and using a lot of reflection in our lives and what we've been through and how we felt and all of those things. Like people have to be able to relate to your story and what you've been through to know that like they can do it too. So stories are what is going to be like the number one factor of what's going to cause someone to jump on board with you. Um, so I want to tell you guys a little bit about NLC. So I just went to New Leadership Conference. It was in Los Angeles, California. I had an amazing time, and I started reading this book, Stories That Stick, on the plane ride there. And I was so inspired. I got through like the first 4 chapters, and I was just like, this book is going to be so good. And I've been thinking a lot about my story and how like I want to get better on my page about really, digging deep and really telling a story um, with every post. And while at NLC, it was amazing to me. The content was absolutely amazing. They gave a lot of good takeaways for us. But I noticed that with every presentation, the things that stood out to me the most were the stories that they told. So a lot of them had, like, they would tell, like, there was one guy who told us his whole topic was about resiliency and how, as a Beachbody coach and on your team, like, you have to learn being resilient and having that tenacity so that when things go wrong, like, you bounce back, you have good composure, that kind of thing. And he put up a picture of his daughter who had a really bad bike wreck. And she was in the hospital. She broke her femur. She was like so sad in the picture. He was talking about how she had these amazing dreams about being, this mountain biker where they live and all of this stuff. And he tells this story of how it was so hard to watch her go through this, and how she was so excited when they first got her bike, and then she had this wreck, and she shows her little face. She's so pitiful. She's got her cast on, and he talks about how she was resilient through the process of, months of recovery, and how she would get out there with her bike and she would walk along the bike, to work up to being able to ride it again. And eventually, she was able to get back on the bike, and it shows a picture of her like all happy. And he related that to resiliency and how, like, on our teams and with our business, we have to learn how to deal with the setbacks. And that stuck with me. That was one story out of so many, you guys, that they told in presenting their topics. And I thought it was just amazing because I'm like, even the way they're presenting in a leadership conference is all about, like, those are what I took back, the stories that they told. So it's really been like on my heart to, like, invest more in the story that I have. And for you guys, like, I think it takes a lot of reflecting. Um, and I want you guys to think about, like, all of the commercials that you see, because this book talks a lot about, like, marketing, and how Kendra Hall is the author, and she works with a lot of businesses, a lot of people who have marketing campaigns and all of this. And she talks about how if their business is low and they're not getting a lot of viewers or selling a lot of product, she analyzes, how they're marketing their commercials. And it's really interesting. The commercials that have made it big are the ones that actually tell a story. They're not telling about the amazing parts of their product, right? Like, they're not talking about how great their gum is and how flavorful it is. They're telling a story about a stick of gum and how it got to this person or whatever. Um, but I was thinking about the Peloton commercial. Have you guys seen the Peloton commercial with the black guy? He's like riding the bike and he's singing. Have you guys seen that one? And his little kid is upstairs, and you see the look on the little kid's face because he hears him singing like so loud. He's like, "Here I come," da, da, and he's just like jamming out on his Peloton. You can just see him like riding his bike, and the little kid's like upstairs, like looking out, like, what is going on down there? And he's on his Peloton riding his bike. And it's like telling a little story. It's just like so, like, relatable. Like, I love that commercial. Every time it comes on, I'm like, Jay, that is so funny. And it's so cute. But I thought about, like, that Peloton commercial and all the other commercials that there are that, like, we love so much. Like, I'm sure you guys could think of one. Put it in the chat if you think of one that automatically comes to your head. But those are the commercials we love because we can relate to them. Like, it tells a story, right? And so that should be how our posts are, and everything on our page. Like, people should be able to remember and connect with something that you said and the story that you're telling on your pages. Like, it should be the same for us. And when I like think about that commercial, I'm like, I think about like when I'm working out and I'm at home and like running around the house with my husband and just like blasting out, because I sing a lot around here. So like that made me think about that and relate to that. Um, but I want to go over like there's 4 really good points in the book that talks about what makes a good story. So I'm going to go through those. You can take notes if you want to, but there's 4 main ones. The very first one of making a good story is having identifiable characters. So obviously, we are the character of our story as a coach and what we put out on our page. But I want you to think about like Beachbody products. Those are not our characters, right? Like that should never be the center of our post. We should never be like, here's my Shakeology. Here's, this is going to do wonders for you, yada, yada, yada. Like our products are not our characters. We are our business, right? Like we are the story. So what we've been through and how Beachbody's products have helped us, that should be a subtle like part to our post, right? It should just be like pretty much like we're bloggers, right? And we're telling our story throughout our post, but our health and fitness and our journey of discovering who we are by becoming better, like healthier versions of ourselves, that is the main part, right? And our products help us get there. And also thinking about, even though you're the character of the story, you are not the hero, right? So your post shouldn't always be like, this is what I did, all about me. It's you're creating a story so that someone else can really connect to you and relate to you on a personal level. Okay. So you're not showing them, I'm awesome every single day because I get up and work out. I'm doing this and I'm amazing at this because yada yada. You're showing them like a story of even though, what's he gonna put in the chat? Even though, yes, even though, oh, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, y'all. You distracted me, Ashley.
Sorry.
I was
trying to take like little notes for everybody so they could read it. I didn't mean to distract you.
Yes, you're fine. Sorry. I just lost my train of thought. Even though we are showing up for ourselves, that's what I was gonna say. Even though we are showing up, like we never want to come across as like the superhero every single day. We want to tell a story through, our consistency in our health journey, so that someone can connect to it, right? Like even though, I think about Ashley a lot as far as showing up and staying consistent because she's been through a lot this year, especially with her dad and being in the hospital. And, she never uses that as an excuse, but she talks about it a lot and she should because, she's showing up for herself. And I guarantee you a lot of people, and I know this because she's talked about it, a lot of people can relate to her story of having a loved one in the hospital that you're going back and forth with because they tell her about it, right? So if she would have never told her story of going to the hospital and still working out and still, taking her food with her that was healthy instead of eating all of the crap in the cafeteria, people wouldn't be able to relate to the fact that you can show up for yourself despite all the things that you're going through, right? Like, like people make so many excuses and we have to show them, not coming off in a way as, we're the best, but showing them it's possible and always offering, that encouragement in your post. The second part to making a good story, as far as, you being the character, that's number 1. The second part is authentic emotion. And this is probably, I would say, the most important. You're not just telling the experiences that you have gone through, but you're talking about how you felt. So the words that you're using should be words that show emotion, like humiliated, stressed, alone. Like all of those words evoke emotion, right? Like um, I don't want to just say like, you know, I went here and it was a really good time and, whatever. Like I want to talk about how I felt when I was there. I want to talk about, um, the first time that I realized like my stomach issues at 25 years old like was because of what I was putting in my body. Like I was so humiliated when I came home from Cracker Barrel one night and I barely made it to the bathroom because my stomach issues were so I was so, I had major like digestive issues because of all the crap I was eating. Like you have to paint that picture with raw emotion, right? So thinking about words that actually show how you felt and not just sharing your experience, if that makes sense. And we talked about this couple team calls ago when I was talking about content. Um, I was using Ashley Molstead's little slides. One of the things she said was using negative wording. Like um, I never imagined my life would be like this, or I never thought I would feel this way. Like starting something out with a negative wording can kind of captivate someone and get them interested because it's like, oh, she's felt like that too. So, using your emotion in your stories and preparing your content is the second one. The third one is having a significant moment. So, thinking about your life, obviously we all have different layers to our story. Like I could spend all night telling you all the different parts to my story, not only my health and fitness weight loss journey, but also my coaching story, right? Like how I got into coaching. We all have so many different layers. But when you're thinking of a specific post, you have to zoom in just like you do on a map. You have to kind of hone in all the way down to one specific small, detailed moment to kind of emphasize for that person the emotion that you felt in that specific time, right? So when you're thinking about one post, don't try to like put so many things of your life in one because you don't want to be so big and broad. You want to hone in on one specific time that you felt a certain way so that person can relate to you. Okay. Um, I don't see Nikki on this call, but when I was thinking of my notes for this, I was thinking about her and her roller coaster moment. She tells that story a lot. That was one specific time in her life. It's very detailed. She was at Dollywood. She even named the specific ride that she was on. And she was kicked off of that ride because she was too big to fit into the seat. And she talks about crying, walking all the way down back from the ride and feeling absolutely humiliated. And she, like, I can see this because she told me this story, and literally I was in tears when she sat down and told me this. But she told me that she looked in the mirror, she got off that ride, she looked in the mirror by herself, you know, at a theme park, and she was crying, and she looked at herself and said, "Today you're starting. Today, something has to change." That was one specific moment in her life, and it's very detailed because she honed in on that one specific ride, that one specific day. So thinking about your specific moments, and we have tons of them, you guys. We have thousands of specific moments in our lives that we had a moment, or we had some raw emotion that brought us to make a decision to turn towards healthy eating or working out, or whatever part of your life that you're more specific on in your coaching business. We all have those, tons of them. So it's really, really important to reflect on those moments and write them down, because those are going to be your posts, right? Those are going to be every single day the stories that you focus in on. Now, you can use the products, you can use a picture of you in your workout gear with your Shakeology or your Energize sitting there, and you can totally tell a story, right? That should be the subtle part, is your product. But your post should always be your story, okay? So I want you guys to think about your stories first, your moments in time, your emotions that you felt. I want you to think of those first, and then think about the picture that you're putting with it. And to me, your picture should be, something related around the products or healthy living, but it should have a story behind it. The fourth thing that makes a really good story is specific details. So just like I was talking about with Nikki's story, like, she told me this in person. Like, we actually were sitting down talking to each other, and she was a little bit more detailed than I'm sure like some of her posts were. But I felt it, like her details and everything she was telling me, I felt it so much that I was in tears, listening to her tell it. And that should be what our posts convey, right? So if we're not giving specific details, if we're not actually creating that imagery for our audience, they're not going to feel it either. They're just going to scroll on by. And we want our audience to be captivated, right? We want them to stop their scroll. Like, we want them to read that first sentence, that hook, right? That first part that's like, I never thought in 24 years I would feel like this. Or, using those number words like we talked about before. So creating that imagery with specific details, and I want to give you guys an example that was in the book. It was talking about Michelle Obama's a speech that she gave, and it was talking about how it was like one of her most famous speeches, and it was famous because of the picture that she painted basically in the speech. So she's talking about like the first part of her speech said, a journey that started soon after we arrived in Washington. When they set off for their first day at their new school, I will never forget that winter morning. I saw their little faces pressed up against the window. And that was her talking about like sending her girls off to school for the first time. And she talks about seeing their little faces pressed up against the window. That's imagery, right? Like, that's actually painting a picture of what she saw watching her girls in a new school, going off for the first time. And I mean, she could have easily just said, it was our first time going to school, and it was really hard to leave them, or something like that. But she painted a picture, right, of what it was like. So for all the other parents that were reading and listening to that speech, like, they could relate to that as the First Lady of the United States. So thinking about painting that picture of, what it really feels like, the emotion behind it, all of those things. And it takes time. Like, it takes practice. It takes honestly seeing how people respond to your post. I don't know if you guys have felt this with your posts before, but sometimes there's just posts that you get a lot more response to that you didn't think would happen. And you notice that, oh my gosh, people really related to that because of their comments, because of what they're saying. And those are the posts that probably are the hardest for you. They're probably the most vulnerable ones for you. But those are the ones that you have to keep doing, and you have to keep digging deeper with, because that's going to be the post that people are going to remember. And when they're not feeling good about themselves, and they need help with nutrition, and they need a coach and a guide and someone who's in their corner, they're going to come back to your page, because they're going to know that you're real, you're honest, you're trustworthy. And that's the whole thing about our stories, you guys. We're building trust, right? And it's so hard. It is so hard to tell our story. I'll just be honest, there's a lot of things that are like I haven't even dug into yet. Like I haven't even really posted about my page or on my page about because it's hard. And I'm thinking about all of my teacher friends that are still on my page and all of the friends and family that I still have on my page. And I don't want them to take it the wrong way. Or, you think about all of these things in your head, but the fact is, we all have those specific moments in time that cause change in our life. And if we don't put that out there and show that for somebody else, like that could potentially change their direction in life too. So it's up to us to be brave to tell that story. Um, so it's a constant work in progress telling your story. It is a constant work in progress. I will say that again. No one has arrived at telling their story, and your story constantly changes, right? That's why our work is never done because what I'm going through right now is not going to be what I'm going through a year from now. Our families change. We have children. We change jobs. Our children grow up. They go through things. We lose friends. We gain friends. We lose family members. Like we have all these things we go through, and we have to share our perspective on life through those things by telling a story, right? So that's all I have for you guys. If you want me to go back through, if you didn't get those 4 points, the first one was an identifiable character. The second one was authentic emotion. The third one was a significant moment. And then the fourth one was specific details. And those are things just in reading this book that I really like when I formulate my posts, like I really want to ask myself those questions. Like, are you really showing emotion in this? Are you honing in on a specific time of your life, a specific moment? And are you not the hero in this? Are you really showing someone that they can connect to? So if you guys have any questions, you can ask me in the chat or comments. This is the first time that we actually have almost 10 minutes left. And I just want to apologize, you guys. Ashley and I are the worst about letting this cut off. And I hate that because I don't like just to not have closure. So we are not going to be late today. We're not going to let this cut off. Ashley is saying that holds me back. This is so true. That holds me back so much from sharing vulnerably. My mom follows me or my sister. Yes, I do that all the time, you guys. And I'll just say, like, there's things through coaching that I have learned about myself because of my childhood. And don't get me wrong, like I had an amazing childhood. My parents are amazing people. But there's things that like you kind of grow up learning because your mom or your dad are a certain way and they have a certain influence on you because of their personality. And my mom had a really big part of some things that kind of held me back in life. And I didn't realize it until being a coach and honestly being married to my husband because I have his perspective now. And there's a lot of things that I wished I would have done differently, but I didn't really have the support from her that I wished I would have had. And I can't really talk about that on my page, because I don't want to hurt her feelings and I'm definitely not going to say my mom, but I think there's a lot that I can still share on my page related to that, how you grow up and how you change based on just your influence, if that makes sense. So yeah, totally get that, Ashley. And yeah, what Ashley was saying about like your products, like definitely don't say Shakeology. Definitely don't name your Beachbody workouts. Just always say, superfoods or this amazing cardio program I'm doing. Like there's always a name outside of what it actually is because you do want to create that curiosity. on your page. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Anything you want to add, Ashley?
No, I don't think so. But just going off of that, like I always tell people, like you were talking about, like describing things through emotion. Anytime you're going to use like products or anything, I always say describe what you're doing. You don't need to give them a name of anything, because all they're going to do is go Google it and find that they can just buy it without going through a coach, which we don't want them to do. We want them to have that support. So just always just think of like this whole job that we do is describing things, right? So we're describing the products we use, how they help us, how we feel when we use them. We're describing our experiences and the things we've gone through in detail. Not just like the story you were talking about, Nikki. Like Nikki's not just saying like, I got on a roller coaster and they told me to get off. Okay, well, nobody's going to relate to that emotion. They're going to be like, okay, great. So really think about describing things, how you felt, and how the products make you feel, how you feel now. And I can't remember if you touched on it, Joy, or not, but when you are describing things and problems that you went through, there should always be a beginning, middle, and end. So like, this is how I felt, this is what I did, this is how I feel now. So you always have to bring it around, right? Like, don't describe this like huge traumatic event and then just end it like that. Everybody's going to be like, okay, and you did what about it? So you always want to like give a solution to the problem that you had, so that people see that this is our solution. This is what we're doing about it.
Yeah, and that brings up there's another part that I was kind of wanting to go into, but maybe another call. It's basically like there's a normal, like there's how they were before, and then an explosion. So something happens, and then a new normal, how things are different. And it's basically like what Carl Dackler, CEO of our company, talks about all the time. Like, before Beachbody, what was your problem? How did Beachbody help you solve that problem? And how do you feel now? How did it change? It's the same thing with telling a story. Like, how were things before? What happened? What was the explosion? And then what's the new normal now? How are things different? So like Ashley said, always ending on a positive note. You definitely don't want to be the Debbie Downer in all of your posts. You want to talk about how you're, the turnaround, have a positive spin on it. Okay, I think we're done, you guys. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add or add to the chat? We have 3 minutes left. Was this helpful? Yeah? Okay, good. All right, well, thank you guys so much for showing up tonight, and I hope this helped. I hope it causes some reflection, hopefully, in your minds and your hearts, thinking about, the story, because we all have so much to give. It just takes like tapping into that and actually being brave enough to put it out on our page, right? So thank you guys for showing up, and always ask Ashley or I questions if you have them, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.